Monika is a keen and curious ML engineer, loving to build systems on the computer. She started in machine learning as a master student, looking for Higgs boson and dark matter within the CERN data. Later on, Monika moved to the IT industry. She worked on various machine learning projects, including open source intelligence tools and a distributed system for ML cybersecurity analytics. Oh well, currently Monika works as an MLOps engineer, improving the MLOps platform that is used in production for shipping models to a 45 million user platform. Monika, wow, your bio is incredible. It's just stunning, and I hope we can all learn a lot today. Thank you for coming on the MLOps Community Meetup.
Thank you, Dimitrios. It sounded so well, like a very, very long life story.
Well, that was because you had an awesome bio. Now, for those that do not know, I'm going to give a few announcements, then we're going to jump into this full conversation with Monika. Thank you all for joining us. It is an absolute pleasure to have Monika here and everyone else here. The first announcement that I will make is we want this to be interactive. So feel free to ask questions throughout the presentation. Monika's got a quick few slides that we're going to go over, and then we're going to be just chatting. And so at any point, feel free to jump in, ask a question. You can put it in the Q&A tab that we have, or just throw it in the chat. Feel like you are part of this, because that is the beauty of being here live in real time in this meetup, that you get to interact with us and we get to interact with you. Next thing I will mention is that we have an MLOps community Slack. I see a lot of familiar faces and names in here, but if you're not in the MLOps community Slack, I highly encourage you to get in it. We've got over 5,000 people now. That is unreal to me, because just a year ago, we were at less than 100. And as you all know, MLOps is blowing up. So lots of good questions, lots of smart people that are very, very kind with their time and wisdom. And if you would like, I'll put a link to that community in the chat. Last thing, over the last 6 years, I have been trying to create a, sorry, I said 6 years, I meant 6 months. Definitely not 6 years. Over the last 6 months, big difference, but it still has been a big endeavor for myself, a 6 months undertaking, trying to create a landscape that will help people understand what each tool does, where it fits in the MLOps lifecycle. And right now on our MLOps community website, we have released the first 2 of the MLOps lifecycle sections. And we're calling it the compare page. So you can go on there, you can compare different tools within the monitoring space and the feature store space. And our goal is that we are going to continue doing this for every piece of the stack. So we demystify the different tools that are out there, because I don't know about you, but a lot of times I go to a website and it's an MLOps platform, or they just call themselves an AI platform. And then I poke around for quite a bit. And at the end, I go, so what do they do? And that is what I want to make sure no one has to put up with. I want to make the MLOps community site be a place where you can find information and see what the differences are between different tools and what opinions they're taking, why they differentiate themselves in one way or the other. So you can check that out on the MLOps community website. And that is as easy as just going to mlops.community and you'll find it there. Without further ado, I think we can start. Monika, maybe before we jump into the slides, you can tell us a little bit of background about yourself and how you came to be where you are right now.
Sure, Demetrius. So first of all, thank you for such a nice intro, and I'm very glad to be here. I actually discovered MLOps meetups when I was looking information about the tools. So I'm very glad that I ended up actually here. And well, I started out originally in machine learning while I was still studying at university. I did projects for SIEM and Fermilab where I looked for Higgs boson and dark matter. And it turned out that, well, when the events are very rare, such as the production of Higgs boson, you always need such advanced analysis methods as machine learning in order to find them happening. For those who are not too interested in physics, I'll just mention that Higgs boson is a particle responsible for all the matter having mass. So later on, actually, I moved into industry and I used my experience in machine learning and also combined the experience of service administration and made myself into a profession of MLOps, which I'm very glad because it combines best of both worlds and it actually lets me use all the skills I have. It's what I like about MLOps, that it's still very dynamic, it's evolving, so there is a lot of space for creativity as well as discovery. So I think, yeah, that these are the reasons I like the field in general. And I'm glad to be here today talking to you guys. Please shoot questions whenever you want to. I'm looking at the chat as well, so you can comment anytime.
Yeah, so let's get into it. And what we're going to do today, because I find it ironic. Monika and I were talking beforehand and trying to make everything work properly. We did a sound check and then we tried to see if Monika's screen share would work. But because she's on her work computer, the screen share is disabled for Zoom due to security purposes, I presume. And so it is my pleasure to present what Monika's slides are. And what we can do is just basically anytime, Monika, you would like me to change slides, you can do a hand wave and then I'll change so that we're both on the same page. And let's just double check, make sure that you can see my screen. Everything looks good?
Yep.
Perfect.
So yeah, today we'll be talking more about machine learning side, actually. We can touch upon MLOps side as well, and if you can have questions, we can discuss it. But my goal today is to present the cybersecurity world news, like why we are using machine learning, why we cannot absolutely do without it, and yeah, what are the benefits and what are the as well pitfalls of machine learning in our world today. So yeah, glad to be talking to you, and let's come to another slide. So first of all, we'll be reviewing a little bit about the landscape of cybersecurity today, what are common threats, how the AI is being hacked. As well, we will be talking fake news, information wars, how we are dealing with them. There are tools specially aimed for them, which are called OSINT, open source intelligence. Also, we'll be talking about machine learning agent as a threat hunter. And later on, we can delve into the future of cybersecurity. What kind of systems are being developed for defense and for threat hunting? So to start on a higher note, you probably all learned about Neuralink as well. Most of you have seen the movie Ghost in a Shell. It's about a future where humans and machines merge. And I think it doesn't seem so far-fetched. Possibly very soon we're gonna have human computer interfaces. And we can see that cybersecurity is gonna touch us personally. It's way more important in our everyday lives, and it's gonna be even more and more important in the future. Because currently our world is also run by machines. Most of medical records are also on computers, so it touches us very personally. Okay. And talking about cybersecurity threats, well, there is a classification for them. Most of the companies around the world report threats, and there's I don't think so that there is a company in the world which existed for a couple of years which hasn't experienced at least one of those. So most of the companies experience external hacking, about half of them. There's also malware incidents, social engineering, spam. As for social engineering, I think all of you experience phishing attacks when you get a malicious link in the email. And it's kind of hard to defend against those. So first of all, we have to be smart ourselves and be aware of it. Also, there have been incidents of insider data leakage and theft. Facebook is very often. So you've probably been have been experiencing a few of those. And it's gonna, the precedence of these attacks has increased in the future. Can move on. And talking about cybersecurity incident response, it also has a cycle, very similar as MLOps has a cycle. So cybersecurity incident response also has a cycle. First of all, the threat is identified. Usually it's done through looking into the logs in your computer or any other device that's being under attack. Every system produces system message logs, and also we can use additional tools to log them. If you are very curious about cybersecurity log monitoring tools, you can look up open source tools such as Suricata or Zik. And there are also more tools. And the second response part is protection. So some protection can be done in advance, such as taking care of your access controls, not giving too much of permissions. Also being aware, so that's why companies have to train their individuals, and also companies have to protect their information. And number 3 is detection. Detection can be done also using cybersecurity logs and also the systems you have on top of it. You can have a machine learning agents looking throughout your logs and helping to determine what kind of attack it is, or you can have an analyst sitting and watching the dashboards and trying to determine that, well, something is wrong with the system. Obviously, machine learning agents are faster, but there are also limits to them because in order to train a machine learning agent, you need to provide it with data, you need to provide it with expert intelligence. How does certain attack look in the data. So machine learning models so far are as intelligent as cybersecurity experts, but they are faster. So these are the upsides of it. And number 4 of the cycle is respond. So it's important to respond as quickly as possible for very serious attacks. Maybe it's like CEO's account being hacked, or your service experiencing denial of service. Then you need to respond as quickly as you can. And number 5, of course, is recover. Recover your service, continue communications, restore your service, and go on with fixing the vulnerabilities in your system. So for every incident, the response is cyclic. You need to go through all those steps. There is actually a pretty standardized process of the response. So all the cybersecurity teams are being trained on it. And of course, you need always to improve your system to eliminate the vulnerabilities as much as you can. Okay.
So I've got a quick question here before we
Yes.
move forward. On this detect part where you were talking about how machine learning models are involved, but they're only as good as the humans that are doing it. It's just faster. Does that mean that anytime there's some new attack that comes out, these machine learning models are not going to be able to pick it up? Or is it like, can you explain how that works? And
yeah, there are, I would say, a couple of approaches. Some systems combine both. If it's an advanced machine learning detection system, it can have both. So one of them is pretty simple. You simply look for anomalies. So here you can also detect a new kind of attack. So if you sense an anomaly, it could be different network patterns, or also some different logging in patterns. The machine learning system could simply sense an anomaly. And also there is another type of machine learning system which detects already behavior, the behavior it was trained on. For example, it could detect like that somebody logged into the system and tried to elevate their privileges to become the root user. So in this case, the system should be trained on scenarios. An advanced machine learning system could have both. It could have both anomalies and scenarios. But of course, I think nothing can change a cybersecurity expert with the experience, because, well, as far as for machine learning systems, of course, we train them, but I think there can always possibly be blind spots, and experienced cybersecurity experts could notice that. So I think the best way to see it is that machine learning and cybersecurity should work in tandem, and that machine learning could automate some usual regular tasks like regular attacks and make the work for expert faster. But in general, I think so far we cannot replace experts completely.
yeah, cool. Thank you.
Okay, so another reason to use machine learning is actually that we're experiencing a huge expert shortage. So if anybody watching is still considering a career in cybersecurity, it's a good decision, because the need is only gonna grow in the future. And for now, we are already missing about 4 million experts worldwide. So this means that, the current experts have to work harder, have to find ways to make everything more automated and faster. And basically, we cannot do away without machine learning because it helps to at least reduce the stress experienced by the shortage of specialists. And looking at the current world, cybersecurity threats are all around us. First of all of you experience the damage fake news can do. And sadly, machine learning only made easier to produce fake news and fake videos. But on the other side of the coin, machine learning is also being used to combat fake news. So the algorithms, similar algorithms could be used also to detect whether videos are fake, whether the comments are too different in sentiment, meaning if fake news is usually targeted to produce a reaction in users, and if we have a very contrasting opinions and comments, we could also detect that it could be a fake news. And another thing that's very relevant today is hacking machine learning systems. So turns out that face recognition algorithms are not absolutely accurate. They can be hacked with face masks and various different methods. And this might mean that, it's not an absolutely ideal method of person identification. And the more accurate, the more safe one today is still using fingerprint recognition. And as far as talking about defense systems today, there are drones being used for automated defense systems. And cybersecurity here is also very crucial. The defense system itself is also something, it could be considered as part of cybersecurity because it's very automated. Many machine learning algorithms are also being used to pick targets. So basically the same recommendation engines that are being developed to sell us relevant products, they are also being used to pick relevant targets and also optimize which type of rockets should be used in defense systems. And another one I would like to draw your attention to is cybersecurity in hospitals. Actually, sadly, last year we had a first victim of cybersecurity incident, the first death in a hospital, because the hackers hacked into the hospital and encrypted the medical records of the patient, and doctors were not able to help the patient. So we're seeing that, cybersecurity importance is growing, and these days it's also a question of life and death, as well as if we would talk about autonomous cars. So you possibly remember also from last year that Teslas were hacked with modifying the speeding limit signs, which resulted in a car accelerating where it should have been driving at 30 miles per hour. So it accelerated much faster because it perceived it as 80 miles per hour. So it could have ended in an accident. This time the driver was lucky, but we realized, cybersecurity is going to be more important in the future, and machine learning also can be hacked in very unstraightforward ways, I would say. It's very often unpredictable, and we should be careful about using machine learning too. It has its flaws, and in certain scenarios, we should have, I think, systems to protect us because human life is at stake. And I was talking about internet. So we usually use a small part of the whole web. The web is much deeper. Some of you might have heard of dark web. So this is where our open source intelligence tools come to action. Most of the web we use is publicly available. It's surface web, it's public profiles, everything on Wikipedia, Yahoo, and all such platforms. Also, deep web is more like forums, what you can read inside the forums. It's not easily indexed and searchable, but the most interesting part I would like to draw attention is dark web, because this is where the most crimes happen. So it's both people trafficking and drug sales and all the illegal activity. So cybersecurity is also responsible, I would say, for the dark web security. We have tools. Also, government is making actions to be able to track what's happening on dark web, to be able to find criminals, to find illegal action. And this is also where machine learning and web crawlers are coming in. And it forms one huge area of cybersecurity, which is called open source intelligence. We will be discussing this today as well. So if you have questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. So yeah, we can change slide.
I see there is a question coming through in the chat.
Yes.
Asking about how to get into cybersecurity as an outsider. What kind of skills are needed?
Yeah, so it depends which side of it you want to work, because you can work as an expert monitoring the systems, and also the profession is called analyst. And also you can work as a product developer, which I had chance to do that as well. So I came from machine learning background, and I joined in the project, actually 2 projects, which used machine learning as a developer. You can also contribute as an analyst if you like to digging through system logs and discovering hacker patterns, learning about malicious behavior. If it's that your kind of thing, then you would be aiming to be an analyst. And well, in some cases, you can, of course, graduate from computer science also, but there are also many online courses you can use. And it's in cybersecurity, we have quite a few standard certificates. So you can after you learn in the courses, you can pass a certificate, and you can try an entry role in cybersecurity. Or if you like creating products, you can just, develop your coding skills and try to join a company where products are being developed.
And there is something also interesting that I've heard of, and maybe we can talk about this, because I just saw something on LinkedIn of a connection of mine got a $60,000 bounty because they found a bug or a potential security threat for Microsoft. And so once you get to that level, I imagine that is a completely different level where you're the one that knows a lot about the vulnerabilities, and you're able to go in and try and exploit those vulnerabilities.
Yeah, so I don't know how it's gonna end, but I think this sum is pretty low for the for the impact it could have for the Microsoft users. So I don't know, it might end well for the person, but yeah, in general, it's very common. Usually there are usual procedures for the users who discover bugs to report those. But I think, in this case, they will just want some profit. So it might work. It might work because for Microsoft, I think it's a minor thing. But in this area, it's very common, and also asking money for encrypted data and so on. So it's cybersecurity is crucial thing, and sometimes even in the case of the crime, companies are also willing to pay bounties to get their data back, even before the crime can be solved by the police, because they need the data so much. So,
along those lines, it's fascinating because I think I just saw some news about how some states in the US are considering making it illegal to pay the ransomware. And so that would put companies in a very big pickle if it were to happen like that. But just moving on, I see there's another question in the chat, and it's asking, do you think governments and organizations are serious about cybercrime?
Yeah, so I think the area is evolving very quickly. And even though governments are protecting their most important assets, there's always room for vulnerability. I noticed that governments are taking actions, they're aware of it, but the problem is that the hackers evolve very quickly, and they also use the most modern tools, and it's hard for governments to keep up. So that's why we're still having such problems as, power plant being hacked, which could end in catastrophe, of course. And we also have governmental systems being hacked very often for political reasons, as well as a part of information war between countries. So yes, governments are taking action. I think I hope so that in the future there is going to be even more focus, because hacker tools are becoming more advanced. They exploit the machine learning as well, and also various automations. They are smart, they are fast, and so we need actually the same people sitting on our side on the protecting the critical infrastructure, because I think the best people to identify threats and defend the infrastructure are the ones who actually know the best ways to hack them. So governments are also making events where they let people participate in, it's called white hat hacking, where you participate and try to hack some system and present your findings. So I think in the future we're gonna have even more attention to that.
Excellent.
Yeah, and the tool I mentioned, open source intelligence. So what is that? It's actually a system which is gathering the data on the internet, which crawls the internet, as you see on left-hand side. It can crawl information, gather it from your public profiles, from chats, from all the social networks. also from all your posts. So for example, if you're posting something, you attach the location tag, it can also crawl that. And it uses machine learning algorithms to make sense of that data. So I was also working on an open source intelligence tool, and we used machine learning to recognize objects in photos. We also used it to analyze sentiments in text. So you can sense that it basically with the machine learning you can know like gather all the information about the subject you're looking at. The usual jargon for this subject is entity. So entity can be anything. It can be a person, it can be a company, it can be an university, it can be an organization, maybe some group of activists as well. So OSINT helps to gather this information over time. So basically, you can use the crawlers regularly to gather information about something that's happening. Maybe you want to, for example, gather information about you, Demetrius. So the things I could find, it could be like the university you went to, like the places you tagged in your photos, and so on, so on. So
all
as
the
far
songs
as
that I sang.
Yes. So this is pretty sensitive information. So the use of these tools is also limited usually for safety reasons for governments, for the institutions which have contracts also with social media platforms. So for example, Facebook has a contract with government of France, so they can provide some information for them. So this use requires special permissions, but this is also, I would like you to know that this is a very powerful tool for tracking what's happening on the internet. So for example, if we would have some kind of fake news action organized by some group, we could already detect the group that's spreading those fake news, because we would see the whole graph of interconnected people, interconnected topics which are happening within that network. And we could almost pinpoint everybody participating in the action. So it's a very powerful tool. It collects more information than one human can comprehend and analyze. So this is the power of machine learning, basically, and statistical methods. And actually, this kind of tool could have prevented elections from being affected by the targeted advertising, which you probably are aware of Cambridge Analytica scandal as well. So this kind of tool could help to notice that some kind of organized action is happening on the internet regarding some event, as for example, as elections. So I think in the future, these tools are going to be even more popular for governments. Many governments already have something like this, and they're already developing to make it like smarter, more intelligent. And this is actually also a very interesting career path if you like working with machine learning, because you get to combine many different algorithms. So both like image recognition and sentiment analysis and many more. So using OSINT, actually, you can learn how to use machine learning in real time. Usually the architectures of these tools include streaming, real-time data analysis, and also graph representation of different kind of entities spread on your analysis. So yeah, I think it's very interesting. It's very extensive. A good thing is that you don't need to train all the algorithms. You can already use many of advanced algorithms developed by Google and Facebook. For example, the BERT language algorithm, also use the image recognition algorithms for object detection, and so on. These kind of tools can also be used to track military equipment on the internet. So, for example, governments very often have those tools as well to basically look at the new types of military machines are emerging, or do we have some more action, more, for example, military trainings happening, and so on. So OSINT is basically an eye for the internet, for what is happening on the web.
Wow. So this is really interesting to me, and it's a little bit outside of the scope of our chat right now, but this tool, of course, with great power comes great responsibility. It feels like it could be very much abused if any of these governments wanted to use this for nefarious reasons.
Yes, so that's why actually social networks are trying to protect their data. Like a while ago, it wasn't such a concern, but when last year's use of various scraping mechanisms also has evolved. So yeah, all of those social networks have have rules which actually don't allow to use it, and it can be used only within governmental context. So it means you would have to working for some governmental project in order to have permission to do that. So, but I'm glad that you know that social networks these days try to protect their data. They try to protect against bots scanning their systems. So yeah, these are good intentions, and I hope our data is safe in general. Of course, it cannot be absolutely safe because hackers are also getting smarter. But yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's also a little bit, I mean, even with government agencies being able to use it, that also kind of scares me. I don't know about you, but the news and the trust that I have in me coming from the US, the trust that I have in the US government is not that high in how they are using and spying on its people. But that's a whole nother conversation. So we can continue with this and get into that philosophical conversation and the ethics piece in a different time.
Okay. Yeah. So we also under agents, they are used to analyze the data, usually in real time. Data can be streamed from various sources. So meaning it could be autonomous cars, it could be a power plant, even a nuclear power plant. So you realize how important it is to protect it. Also, other power generators. It could be your laptop, or it could be a communication satellite, and so on. So most of those systems are crucial to our everyday lives, to our everyday communicating, driving, and basically use of electricity. So it's becoming even more important to protect those. And machine learning agents analyze data from those systems in real time, and they can alert humans. So far, usually humans are the ones who making decisions, like what kind of action to take. Maybe in the future, when we are closer to AGI, we're gonna have machine learning agents deciding what to do with those systems. But so far, humans are usually involved. And what I like to emphasize that, even though like we don't like to being spied as well, but these cybersecurity tools can also help to protect the most crucial assets in our lives. So there are two sides of the coin, and I think in the future there gonna be even more attention to protecting these assets. And there is also a special area of cybersecurity. It's power plant security, because power plants also have their internal ways of working, of controlling it. So people also study how power plants work and how to protect them, how to detect the malicious activity, and so on. So I think this is also one area where you can combine both like the interesting industry and also your cybersecurity skills as well. So you can see that cybersecurity is like in many areas of our lives, and you can have fun working in different environments. Yeah, so I had a chance also to work on a project where we made a distributed machine learning cybersecurity system, where we had to have agents on each node of the system, meaning each computer, I could say, because we could not move the data to central location. There was a requirement from our customers that they don't want to transfer the data from the system to central location or due to safety reasons. So we developed a unique distributed system which could analyze the data on each node separately. So yeah, these are the use cases. And I could also recommend you, if you would like to learn a bit more about where we're going and also the current state of artificial intelligence, you could read the book AI Superpowers by Kai Fu Lee. It's a very interesting book. You could also sense the approach China is taking when they're using actually most of the data the human can generate. And what are they achieving with it? I think some of it is gonna land here as well, just in another form, in different kind of approach. But because like this people monitoring, it can also help us, like for example, with safety in the streets and so on. So I think in the future we're gonna see some approaches of that in our society too.
Can you talk about that a little bit more? What approaches are like? What's the main differences that you see between China and the Western world, and how they're using it?
I think the main one is the approach to the use of data. It's very, I would say, little regulated. Like a lot of data is openly used by the government. For example, people are being monitored, how they cross the streets, do they behave well, and also do they drive well, a lot of behavior is openly monitored. Mm-hmm. There are upsides of it. It increases safety, and for us it might seem maybe strange. Maybe for our like for more democratic view, it seems like our privacy is being disturbed.
Totally.
But I think in some way we're gonna see it. For example, maybe the traffic could be monitored in the streets in order, to prevent accidents or to get more information where accidents happen and how they happen. I think some of those ideas is coming to us as well. So I think it's a good look into how far AI can go when the use of data is very little, it's not very limited. And this is also the reason why China is advancing so much in this area. But I think it's fun to try to imagine how it can look in a democratic kind of culture. Maybe I think we are going the same direction, but our implementations might be different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think it's really interesting also what's happening in the EU with the new regulation that's coming out, because I know that they specifically said in the new EU regulation that you can't do this kind of social scoring. That's not going to be allowed. And those things that they explicitly say no to, but then, like you say, how is it going to sneak in other ways? And how is it going to happen within a democratic society as opposed to what's going on in China? So this is super fascinating. I really enjoy talking to you about all of this. Thank you, Monika, for the presentation. Is there another slide? I think that's it for the slides. I'm going to stop sharing right now. And are there any other questions from anyone? I think I had one. We got some people saying that they loved it. I had one back at the beginning when you were talking about, and I know we're almost out of time, but when you were talking about the different kinds of hacks and how different hacks happen, but now I can't find it nor remember it. So I think that is a sign that we should probably just stop, and I'll try and talk to you offline about the question that I had if it ever comes back to me.
Okay, and you can find me on LinkedIn. So if you still have questions, feel free to ping me. And I had really fun talking to you. So thank you for all the good comments.
Yeah, this is so amazing. And there's so many insights and ways that machine learning is being used that I had no idea about. I really appreciate you coming on here and showing these slides. The slides were beautiful too, by the way. Anyone who is listening to this in the future, you may want to check out the slides on YouTube if you can. But I guess that's it. We're going to call it a day. And Monika, again, thank you. We will see everyone later. Thank you all for joining us. And yeah, take care.
Thank you, guys.